I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money. This is how.
Hey guys, I'm here on a live stream. I got a very special guest today, the CEO of Filmhub, Alan Descrignoli. So, with no further ado, let's bring Alan on in. How's it going, man?
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me today. Super
Yeah,
excited to be
thanks.
here.
Thank you. And we have a pretty big announcement from Filmhub today, which we're going to get right into. But before we do that, Alan, what is Filmhub? Why should filmmakers care?
Awesome. So what is Filmhub? Filmhub is a technology platform that helps filmmakers distribute their films to streaming services around the world. It's a pretty big change when you take technology to utilize for distribution, because all of a sudden the problems of getting paid, making sure deliveries happen, everything is automated, and we can do that much faster. While still, empowering a sales team that, gets films up on streaming services. So, it's part technology platform, part, distribution, and really just making sure that, we automate the process of distribution for filmmakers and using people as well alongside it.
Right. And when people ask to describe so is FilmHub you consider to be a marketplace, correct? Not technically an aggregator?
We're not an aggregator. What is an aggregator? What is a distributor? Like, all these names are kind of, all over the place at this point, and everyone has a slightly different definition. What we really are is a technology platform for filmmakers to distribute to streaming services. If you look at any distributor, actually, kind of what are they? They actually are a marketplace in their own rights, right? Like, every distributor says, okay, hey, which titles need to go here? Which titles need to go there? It's exactly how any distribution company works, right? You build a catalog and you get it up on streaming services. It's how you work.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to get into the announcement. And guys, as you're watching, feel free to drop your questions in the comments. We'll try to get to all of them. So Alan, what is going on with FilmHub today?
Awesome. So super exciting. We announced earlier today that we were moving to much faster payments for filmmakers. We're now the fastest paying distribution company, I think, in the world that I have found yet. We're the only film distribution company paying filmmakers as soon as our streaming channels pay. So we are automatically passing through the payments as soon as we receive them. This is a pretty big effort that we've had to do over the past couple of years of working to automate payments. We had to build lots of software to go through audit processes, make sure everything gets paid, make sure things are normalized in reports across thousands of filmmakers. This is something that traditional distribution companies have taken months, sometimes years. You don't get reports, if they pay at all. And we've built technology that automates it all. And so, it's a really, I think, a big step forward for filmmakers in the industry, and we're super excited about it. And it's just using the power of technology.
Right. So if I understand it right, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how I currently understand the change. So prior to what's coming up here, you were paying basically 2 quarters back, right? Like
Yeah.
you
So
would
basically,
go
what
ahead.
happened previously was, we'd receive all payments within a quarter, right? We would take an entire quarter to audit and make sure those payments were correct, and then we would pay out at the end of the quarter. So those payments could have been received, up to 6 months before in some instances, right? Which is, frankly, we didn't love that. We didn't like that. It was taking it, but we saw the issues, and why it took so long was because, it's, some of it was manual at first, right? We had to learn how the process worked. We had to get it right. And this is honestly, like, distributors and sales agents have knocked down our doors for, wanting to license this technology. And, this is where, we believe that this is the future methodology that should exist for everyone. We're just making a step forward in that process. And so, yeah, it used to take us a while, but now we've, automated the process, and we're super excited about it.
So when exactly does this go into effect?
So this will go into effect on December 31st. We had previously announced on November 30th that we had already reduced the payment timeline by 30 days. And so now, starting on December 31st, any payment that has been received is paid out instantly directly to filmmakers.
Right. So the money is going to go directly into our account, potentially, more than once a month, depending on the platforms.
We're going to have, depending on whenever they pay, it's, we're going to, it's going to process through our system, and it's going to go through, and you might be receiving, depending on how fast, and when streaming channels pay, you could be receiving a payment every day, which is awesome.
Right. Right. So we do have a quick question. This is from filmmaker from the UK asked, "Hello, I'm a UK feature filmmaker here, wondering what UK-based platforms are submitted to by Filmhub. Thank you."
Awesome, Ryan. So you can actually see all this directly on our website. So if you just log into Filmhub, go to channels, and then on the channels listing, you can see the territories that each of the streaming channels is in. Some are worldwide, some are country specific, and you can utilize that to do that. So like, for instance, IMDB TV actually just launched in the UK. One of the cool things is coming out. Roku channel is launching in the UK. Those are just a couple of them, but to be honest, it's too many for me to write down. And so, please take a look at our channels page right there, and you'll get a full listing of that.
Okay, and here's a good one. This is a filmmaker from overseas, and I think this could be a generalized question towards just filmmakers overseas in general. How do we get earnings as Nigerians since we can't get paid through PayPal? Are there alternatives?
Yes, there are separate alternatives for people in countries where PayPal doesn't work. Just message our support team and we'll help you figure that out.
Oh, great. Okay, great. Let's see. Are there any specific up and coming streaming platforms that could be the next Tubi? And this new change is really good.
I think there's lots, right? I think there's, I think Plex is making really good inroads. Zumo is now all of a sudden, they were acquired by Comcast, they're being installed in every sort of set-top box. There are a bunch of these services now. And the key is, it's so hard to reach all of them, right? And also don't forget, it's like, sometimes it's not all about like, being the biggest, right? It's about reaching, you receive $100 here, $200 there, right? The key is if you can efficiently deliver to all of them, you can make a lot of money. And that's, one of the reasons for Filmhub, and we have titles that make thousands of dollars a month on Canopy, $1,000 a month on Hoopla, and like, it's like, these are, this is the important thing of being everywhere. Filmmakers, have this kind of, I feel like this grand vision of like, oh, I just want my film on this service. That's all I care about. Well, guess what? Similar to the old world of if you were in Blockbuster Video, but not in Hollywood Video, and you weren't in both, you missed out on opportunities because if some people might only live by one. And so that's really how you have to think about streaming services as well, as you need to be on every one of them.
Yeah. And I can say, like Tubi is in a lot of people's mouths because, there's a lot of people seeing a lot of good revenue from Tubi, but there are a ton of other platforms. I personally have seen quite a bit through Hoopla. I have multiple titles on there and what's it pay out? Like $1 per view or something like that?
Yeah, roughly about, yeah.
Yeah, something like that's crazy. So yeah, plenty of other platforms out there. So here's a question about the QC process. Why does Filmhub not specifically tell producers what needs to be corrected on QC so they can re-upload their content? I think what they're referring to here is, I know this has happened to me some in the early days, like I would submit something and I would get a very generalized, like, basically a redundancy of the FAQ onto what was wrong with the QC. So it's like, what's up with the QC process?
Yeah, totally. Good question. So obviously this is a process that we're constantly evolving and constantly trying to improve, right? The ultimate thing that we see is, most of the time, I'll be honest, 80 to 95% of the errors that we see from filmmakers is because they simply haven't read our requirements. Like, it's ultimately the number one issue. And so, at its core, it really comes down to making sure you read the requirements. They're actually very detailed on our help center. Like, our team puts a lot of effort into them. And, and so it's one thing I always recommend our filmmakers. If you're, concerned about meeting requirements, read them. It's the simple basic piece.
Right.
And then in terms of, providing exact details, right? We're reviewing lots of titles, right? Like, it's like, providing that extra, level of detail, can sometimes, take away from reviewing somebody else's title. And so, we're, obviously want to make that better and provide more detail. But right now, it's just like, that's kind of the level of detail we're able to provide. We're trying to go through, fairly quickly. And don't forget, this is a service that, typically when you work with like an aggregator or an encoding house or traditional methods, they charge you $1,000 plus to do this, right? We're providing this as a free service. That's pretty game changing, right? So, realize that you're getting something for free here. We're making sure that your title is actually capable of being delivered to these streaming services. So, take a little bit of time, do the work to read the requirements, check your videos. When we made this announcement yesterday, I was preparing for make this announcement yesterday, we were recording and editing our video in DaVinci, and, it was kind of fun because we were like, oh, this is like back to like actually like, making films here. And, but it was at the same time, we were like going through, it's like, realizing it's like, it's really, you have to read documentation. You have to apply that thing, like be a master of your craft, right? Like, don't try and just slap something together. Like, this is your work. This is your baby. It's like really just important that you actually go in and work on the technical details. It shows. It really does. Like if you don't do the extra work, people will see that immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're just, if you were more lax on the QC and, say you were, just submitting to some platforms blindly, you'd just be getting rejected anyway.
Completely. You get rejected. And also, like, don't forget, like, one of the reasons that streaming channels love working with Filmhub, and one of the reasons why we are able to get so many films up on streaming services, is they believe and they see that we are, technically savvy. We are not and they complain all the time about standard traditional distribution. Like, oh, the assets weren't QC'd. I didn't receive the right frame rate, all this stuff. Like, this is stuff that traditional distributors like don't honestly think about and they don't talk about. And it leads to films not getting picked up by streaming services on the back end. They probably don't tell you about it, but that happens a lot. We have had, number of streaming services that have come to us saying like, hey, we're now forcing XYZ distributor to work through Filmhub because they can't actually deliver. This is why, this is one of the things that's like super important. We're providing you a service here to make sure your assets are correct. But we need to work with you on that. It takes that effort.
Right. Yeah. And I know even from personally, you have to understand when you said the thing about, hey, this is a free service that we're providing, that really clicked for me. I'm like, oh my God, that's true. Cause I remember back in the day submitting QC for distribution and, paying anywhere from, $600 to $2,000 a pop. And yeah, sure. You got these 2-page detailed reports, but the whole process took a couple weeks where you guys burn over in a couple of days sometimes.
Yeah. And it's actually working on getting even faster. That team is growing significantly, and we're investing heavily into, making sure that happens even faster for our filmmakers.
Right. And I don't want to stay on QC forever, but I did have one other thing just about the process that I was curious about. Yeah. So when you get a title, I'm assuming you start with the art and then you go to the movie. Is there a...
Yeah, we do. We do basically, we all want to do kind of like a quick, just once over, right? Of like, there's a lot of times where we see like blatantly there's major issues, right? And, it's like clearly the filmmaker did no efforts to look at it. We get stretched and squeezed images, et cetera. Right. And it's like, okay, folks, come on, like take some pride in your work, right? Like that's not going to look good showing up on a big screen. And like, if I showed you some of the stuff we see on a daily basis, you would be like, what is this filmmaker thinking? And so like we do kind of do some like quick broad strokes, because guess what? If like you have stretched and squeezed images that we can't fix, there's no sense in us, continuing to review. It's like, that's not even going to work,
Right.
And so, so we do, make sure that we review things in order of, kind of the needs.
Okay. That's cool. So I got another one here. Mackenzie asks, hey, my film has distribution and will be entered into film. Can my film already have distribution and still be entered into film festivals, or should I enter film festival for, this isn't really appropriate. Yes, there are some distributors that will allow you to still be in their film festival if you already have distribution. Some require it to be a premiere. That just depends. Sorry about that one. As far as content status stating delivered, is there any updates to actually show when your content has been delivered to that specific channel, when it's live on that specific channel?
So the delivered means it's been delivered, right? So that does mean it's delivered. As far as when it goes live on the specific channels, unfortunately, streaming channels do not report back when titles go live. And I know this is a big complaint of filmmakers. And that's something, unfortunately, just that we don't even get data on, right? So like we don't see it until we begin getting reports, which is, guess what? When you begin seeing it, that it's, it's actually monetizing. And so it's unfortunately something that we wish would change. We've tried to push streaming services on this, but ultimately it's unfortunately something that's out of our control. But it is something that we are aware is an issue. But also you have to realize, like, a lot of streaming channels are also, like, hard to tell if it's live, because guess what? Like, they're apps, right? They're on a Roku channel, they're on a Fire TV. Like, there's no URL that you can get to click into something on, Tubi on a Roku app, right? Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't happen. Like, yes, you can on the web, but like, if for XYZ, streaming service that only has a Fire TV app, you can't get direct URLs. It's like, that doesn't happen. And so this is, unfortunately part of the game. But guess what? This even proves even more so why it's important that you're on every streaming service possible, because discovery is all about just being able to be selected on services. So if you're not on every single streaming service, you're missing out on opportunity.
So are there any updates on how short form content is performing?
Yeah, and obviously short form content, unfortunately right now, especially with the, plethora of AVOD services that are developing, still has problems. And, from a monetization standpoint, in short form content, I'm calling at this point less than 20 minutes. Mostly AVOD platforms and meaning advertising video on demand, platforms that monetize by having ads on your video, generally require that films are over 20 minutes in length. And so with that, being over 20 minutes in length allows them to kind of, put more ads on it. It's a standard kind of like TV length, right? In the old world. Obviously there needs to be something that pushes forward. There needs to be a short form content streaming service that really works, right? And to be perfectly honest, the dear old Quibi, I think, was actually onto something. They actually had the right model. Not the right model, I would say. They were onto a good consumer insight into people wanting short form content. I think there's something there about that. But ultimately, they built a technology company not in the right fashion. And I think, you can't build a company by, just throwing billions of dollars at a problem. It doesn't generally work. You need to kind of build up from, the small pieces.
Right. So LRG Entertainment asked, does Filmhub distribute Spanish language features? They can produce M&E.
Yes, we do. We do distribute every language. Actually, we have titles across. I think we have over 70 different languages now. Titles on Filmhub, and so we are constantly looking for foreign language content: Spanish, Portuguese, German, French, Italian, Chinese. Some of our biggest titles, are foreign languages. And so, definitely recommend getting those up there. And we're constantly adding new, foreign language services. So actually, we started working with VIX, for instance, on Spanish titles. Tubi has a Mexico version. Zumo has a Mexico version. So, there's a bunch of, different methodologies to get that content monetized.
Right. And I can say from personal experience, I've uploaded some Spanish language subtitles to a few of my features, and it has broadened the reach of them. So
that's awesome.
You can definitely do it.
Yep.
So the next one is Media DW Production asked, can we update key art once a film is on different channels, once it's live?
Yes, you can. We do have an extra fee for redelivering and re-QCing those titles, just because it takes, it's effort out of our time. We really, it's also like we generally recommend putting, top artwork at the beginning. It's also the streaming channels. They generally don't exactly like when you come back to them, 2 months later saying, oh, we want to change the key art. It's like, it's not a great practice. But we do support it when needed.
Yeah, I can, they've done this for me a few times, and every time I'm like, oh gosh, I should have got it. I just put up a wrong concept, and I was like, you know what, I like the art, but the concept just wasn't right. And sometimes you have to update. And I've happily paid the fee. Now, if you've submitted, but let's say it hasn't been delivered anywhere yet, you're still paying a re-QC fee, but you're not paying the redelivery fee to the platforms yet, right?
Correct. Yeah, because there's no deliveries that we need to go through and redo. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make that clear. So this isn't really a question, but Alonzo says, just wanted to let you guys know that I'm loving what you're all doing. It's fantastic that you're all bringing information to filmmakers, answering important questions, sometimes even enlightening us on some things we weren't aware of that we needed to know. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alonzo.
Anyway, do you take films in Hindi, India?
Yes, of course. Any language. We take films in any language.
Okay, great. And here, what genre is performing best on Filmhub?
Standard best indie filmmaker question. What should be my next genre? Guess what? It depends totally on your film. I hate this comment of saying like, oh, we only want, we only want genre-based films, like, etc. Like, guess what? Some of our best performers are art house titles. People think art house titles don't perform. Guess what? They can. It really just depends ultimately on your film. It really, can vary and depends. It's like, you got to like, it just really, it's up to the film is really ultimately the thing. You got to look at that. Forget this concept of genres, etc. What matters is finding an audience, right? The audience exists across genres, right? And so it's like, that's the more important way you think about it. So it's not about like which film genre, it's about what film audience. And like, think about what are things that you have large audiences for that are super interested. Like, yes, there are some audiences that are, very horror specific. There are some audiences that are very, let's call it conspiracy theory, aliens, those are areas that are interesting. There are people, very focused on like, factual documentaries. There are people that are very focused on action adventure stories. Like, it's like, it really depends. You just have to be very good about finding your audience and really speaking to that group. I mean, case in point, let's take a look at like, let's use a big example of something on Netflix that recently, at my heart, I'm a outdoorsman, big skier, backpacker, everything. And so, I was a huge fan of the, independently produced Maru and Free Solo films, right? And so what did Netflix do? They saw that those films were performing well. They saw they had huge built-in audiences, and they just went and produced their film 14. Honestly, the independently produced versions were much better. But, you see, is like they knew that there was an audience there. Guess what? That's what major film studios are doing and looking at. They're trying to see that the audience is where they go. So look at films that performed well. See things that have lots of ratings on IMDb. See what you think that interesting piece was. The data is there. Go troll IMDb. Look at things that have high ratings. Look at things that have high Rotten Tomatoes. Find the reason why you think they found that audience, right? Ultimately for films, if they really take off, you have to find that audience and get your ultimate, all you're trying to do is build a referral mechanism. Because guess what? If someone watches your film and doesn't recommend it to somebody else, you've missed an opportunity for marketing. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And I'll piggyback on that a little bit. I started out my career, I love horror movies. I started out making horror movies. And at the time, the common, rule of thumb, indie films start in horror is what a lot of people were saying. And, I did okay with it. But from then all the way up until 2 years ago, what I heard over and over and over again from independent distributors was like, documentaries, make them if you're passionate, but, don't do it to make, money. But I switched over my paradigm 2 years ago into documentaries with very specific niche audiences in mind, and did very well. In some cases, better than any of the narratives I've done.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about, but like, guess what? I've seen your documentaries, the ones that performed well. They all had built-in audiences, right?
Yep.
Like areas that have like really strong audiences, right? And like you made those films to those. It's awesome.
Totally. All right. So CCC Entertainment Group says, wanted to thank FilmHub for providing filmmakers the option to help with the QC process for a minimal fee. Well worth the headache from all of us. Now on to more platforms. Badass. Great. All right. We answered the short form content question already. Hi, Jason Allen. Is FilmHub looking at adding more international platforms, especially in the Asian and African markets?
Totally. Yeah. We are, constantly adding more platforms. Also, we get a lot of recommendations from our filmmakers of platforms. So like, always do send those to us and saying, hey, these are new services that we're working on. We have a sales team that's growing, adding new platforms on a, weekly basis. We've added, probably 3 or 4 per month for the last couple of months. And that rate's going to actually pick up even faster as we go into the new year. So we're super excited about that. So if there's always new platforms, we'd love to talk with them. And we are actively doing that. This is one of the big benefits of the Filmhub model, right? When we can only make money is when our filmmakers make money. So guess what we want to do? We want to get more of your films on more platforms. It's really nice when we're equally incentivized and aligned.
Right. And I got kind of a question off of that. Do you think the future of streaming distribution, like it seems to me like it's becoming more and more like wide and all encompassing, like, like these platforms like Tubi and,
Yeah.
Amazon already, they're already all over the world or, getting to be there. Do you feel like it's going to be like,
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, here's the way I see it. The distributor that gives you the pitch of like, oh, we go to this film market, we get, we sell this territory, we sell that territory. Guess what? That's going away. So do you want to give your film for 5, 10, 15 years to a distributor that is pretty much like solely focused on like selling off territories when that's a practice that's going away? That's scary, right? Like all these services now are everywhere. So, I think that's one of the biggest things that you really need to think about is like, it's more about how do you reach every streaming service than it is about territories now. And that's something that is, it's in change. And so you got to think about the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, we were at AFM and like, AFM is quiet this year compared to prior years, like these film markets are kind of dying, and so like anyone that says like, oh, that's the only way, that's the way you make money is by going to these film markets. Like, yes, but like, it's still like, it's a dying breed. And you need to realize that, everyone's licensing worldwide rights now. It's like there are still like a couple pockets where you can make money. Great. But I'd rather go with a full, industry paradigm shift and work on that, than building something for, old industry.
Mhm. Oh, here's a good one. Oh, hey, Joe, man, long time. I knew this guy years ago. Can I release an extended version of my film that is already live, or say a director's cut, or an alternate version of that movie?
Yeah, definitely. So good question. Right now in Filmhub, we only support having one version of your film. And that's just because streaming channels get really confused. They're like, we think it's cool. It's like, oh, well, I want the director's cut, and this is like something that like is ultimately like, it's it's like, hey, I think this is the better version. It's better style. But for streaming services, they want to make sure that they can only look at one version of the platform. So always put your best foot forward, put that single version out. It makes it much easier to manage for everyone. And also don't forget, if you have multiple versions of a film out, if we were to support that on FilmHub, your revenue would be split. And so all of a sudden then, the streaming channels would say like, oh, well, actually this title doesn't do well when maybe the sum of them is actually massive. And so it's really important, to always drive, to one version of your film.
Right. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but say you're really passionately wanting to get this director's cut out.
Yep.
You could re-QC it and swap it.
Yeah, you can swap it.
But it's not optimal for the platforms, but it is possible.
Yeah, it is definitely something you can do. It is something you can do and swap out the version, and we can deliver a new edit or new cut. We have it happen frequently. Sometimes people want to fully retitle something, right? We do support those things. Ultimately, it's always the goal of getting it right, but sometimes you need to make a change, right? Sometimes you realize like, oh shit, I missed this, and it happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. We cured cancer just a few minutes ago, but no, you didn't miss me. The stream will all be replayable later. Thanks, Christopher. Good to see you, man. Ryan Smith asks, is Filmhub able to split payments for co-productions, or is the payment structure a single account situation?
Good question, Ryan. So right now we are focused on single account situations. Obviously, we do provide you, full reporting detail that you can then go and split amongst your co-production. But for right now, we are focused on single split payments right now, or single account payments. Apologies.
Right. As far as I know, I don't know too many distributors that do split payments. At least in my experience. But it's something
we receive a lot of feedback that like filmmakers want that, right? And it's all about transparency, in the end. So it's aligned with our mission and vision. It's just something. It's not in terms of priority. I'd rather get the
payments quicker. Yeah. Hey, that's cool for me for now. All right. Christopher asks about MUBI. Which I'm assuming he's asking, if it's going to be available or if you're working on.
We're constantly adding new streaming services. So you know what? I would go ahead and ping MUBI, ping the CEO, ping everyone and say, hey, we want you to work with Filmhub. Do that. Guess what? This is like, we're a community here, folks, right? It's like, your win is our win. And so, if there's things you want, push for them, tell these people, hey, I want to get my title. Check it out, Filmhub.
Right, right. And we got some more questions. But before I get into them, I didn't actually ask you this at the beginning. Are you good for the hour?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure. If I keep talking, and all of a sudden
I'll
you're like,
have
oh,
to bounce probably 5 minutes before, but you
okay,
got me 55 minutes. Okay.
okay, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
All right. Is it possible to submit audio description tracks with feature length films? Does that make the film more attractive to channels? Um, I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure what he's asking.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Uh,
either.
um, is he asking like for a dialogue script or something?
Yeah, I wonder, not sure exactly what the audio description tracking means here. Obviously we do not support separate audio tracks like for different languages, et cetera. And obviously just use the SRT files to get the details out as needed. But we do not support separate audio tracks is one thing I can answer there.
Okay. Christopher asks, my producing partner wants to go with a distributor because they'll put effort into promoting our film. What's a different way to look at that if you self-distribute?
Yeah.
I think I get what he's.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is a question, right? Like this is one of the things, right? Is like, traditional distribution claims to market your film. I would really dig into what that actually means. What are they really selling you on? What exactly are they going to do? Ultimately, I mean, I'll be honest, we work with a bunch of distributors and we see that, a lot of them don't actually do the marketing for you. And so really dig in as to like what they're really promising to do. Because guess what? All of a sudden, especially if, your film isn't monetizing and isn't the top of their batch, guess where their marketing resources are going to go to? On to the next one. So really take a look at that. I think that, I think there's a big question there that needs to be really deeply analyzed when you make that decision. And I would really like take a second look at that. And also don't forget, if they claim they're doing marketing, they're probably taking 30, 40, sometimes 50% plus marketing expenses and deductions. Guess what? It might not even make monetary sense at that point. That's really an important thing to look at. So I'd really take a look at that as you go. It's a very scary thing. It's a big selling prop of traditional distribution, but it's sometimes can be a big empty promise.
Right.
And a lot of filmmakers have experienced that.
Right. And again, to piggyback off that, I've had experiences on both sides of that with traditional distribution. I've had traditional distributors where I've paid crazy amounts in sales fees and they did absolutely jack squat. And I've worked with some that actually have done a good amount of marketing and, that was worth the amount. At the end of the day, man, it really comes down to your individual project and where the best fit is for that project. And that can be different. All right. So Sid says, also wanted to say thank you to both of you for all your insights about independent filmmaking and distribution. I've loved experimenting with FilmHub and will continue on my follow-up projects. Thank you. All right. So does FilmHub accept TV shows, series, or just feature films?
We have series, shorts, and feature films, all lengths of content. Basically any sort of professionally produced film.
Are there any plans to change how uploading alternate dubs are handled? Uploading an identical video track twice seems like a wasted bandwidth. I'm not exactly sure what they're.
Yeah, I think I get the question.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically one of the things right now is for, foreign audio, different separate foreign audio versions, you have to upload separate videos. Internationalization is something obviously on top of our mind as we think about, improvements to our product. For now, that is generally the way that we're going to have to focus on, just from a simplicity standpoint. But there is some stuff that we are beginning to think about in that method. Obviously, we realize, yes, it is a waste of bandwidth. But there are some things coming that we're thinking about in that fashion. But I hear the pain. So yeah.
All right. It seems the releases to various platforms are random. Are there plans for a specific time frame or a structure to releases in the future to help filmmakers with promotion?
Yeah, great question. So this is up to the streaming channels ultimately. So like they have different buying schedules, they change their buying schedules. So this is like one of the things that can be very frustrating to us and to filmmakers, right? It was up to me, how FilmHub would work is every day I would send a list to a streaming channel saying, here's the every title for you to review, click yes or no. Right? Like that's, that would be the ideal situation and the way that this should work. Frankly, to be honest with you. But guess what? That's not how not how, the buyers at these streaming channels work. They are on their own schedules. They have different competing priorities, all this stuff. And, that's why it's important that we have technology that makes them excited to work with FilmHub, because it gets them like, okay, cool. I want to get in there. I want to, talk with the FilmHub sales team. I want to see what they have that's new. We are constantly in contact. We are on, some of our streaming channels we talk to daily, actually. But ultimately it comes down to what are their schedules, and what are their buying cycles, right? And like that's really ultimately what it comes down to. And we have to work within that.
Right.
And that's the same across any traditional or new age distributor. Like that is, the same thing that has to happen.
Right. And that's also why in the past, if you're going traditional distribution, sometimes you would have a 6 to 8 month window between delivery and that street date.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing you could do if, say, you really wanted to hit that street date, a specific street date, like say you could pick a date, say 4 months in the future, possibly.
Yeah, you could do that, but ultimately, it doesn't work right. It's like it's also like it's not the right thing for a filmmaker to take that approach, right? Because guess what? Like a street date doesn't make any sense. And like it really, like I understand, like you're like, oh well, I want to go to a PR company and I want them to like release to XYZ company and like talk to the reporter at Deadline, etc. Well, guess what? That generally doesn't work, because guess what? The reporter at Deadline has got 5,000 other titles that they're looking at in general. And also the biggest thing is that, what is a release now? If you look at things, it's all matters about kind of when you begin and hit some sort of virality component, right? That's actually what really matters, right? And that can happen at any given time. Right. And it's like, that's really how you have to think about it. Because I'll be honest, everyone that comes to me that does a release date and it asks like, can we do this release date? 2 weeks later, like, oh, okay, well, actually, wait, it's not working. Let's change this up, etc. I'm like, yeah, guess what? Told you so. It's like, it really is just not the way to think about this in the world today. It's like every streaming channel, the way you think about this, film gets delivered to a streaming channel. You're up on a streaming channel. Promote on that streaming channel. Guess what? Do it on the next streaming channel. Do it on the next one, right? Like that's how you have to think about it. It's just a change of your mindset. Similar to like us getting people paid in real time, filmmakers need to change their mindset around release dates. You're like, and this is one of the things is like, you hear the story of like, oh, well, guess what? No Time to Die with, Daniel Craig released on XYZ date across, so many countries and et cetera. It's like, well, guess what? That film happened to have a multi-$100 million budget that has a massive worldwide audience built in. And guess what? You have, when you're, going to generate a company tens of millions of dollars in revenue, they're willing to work with you a little bit and put that data in. And, when it comes down to the fact, like, yes, like, we have to realize that as, filmmakers, there is a, that is a different echelon of film. Like, you just have to like, accept that, it's like, yes, you can aspire to get there. And like, some of you will. And, but ultimately, you got to realize like these are just kind of different practices and it's a different area of the market and it works in a different way. And that's one of the things you got to realize.
Right. So here's an interesting one. Sid asks, does Filmhub have any plans to work with streaming platforms and perhaps give commissions to filmmakers directly using Filmhub, perhaps if they're looking for anything specific? And I think what he's asking is like the
will there be Filmhub originals? Yeah. or like, or will we help commission originals for Tubi or something like that? Like, yes, those are things that all we think about, right? Like those are, nothing that is coming in the near term. It is something that we think is a, potential, direction that we could take with some things. Ultimately right now though, I'd rather focus on getting your film out to more streaming services. And that's, kind of our number one focus right now is focusing on that piece. But yeah, these are natural things that like, we could progress into. We're always thinking about it.
Okay. Here's a good question. Gustav asks, is there some movies that are too controversial to put up through Filmhub? Anything that would have to be removed? Like
Yeah.
kind of,
So we have a content policy in place. It's constantly evolving. We're constantly trying to make improvements to it. Right. So like we have like no hate speech, number of different things. You can just read through our content policy, and that's, there's, porn is not something that we, work with. So, those are all things that we, it's all in our content policy.
right. But and for the most part, you guys you're not curating like just
No,
stuff that's maybe
yeah,
against
just stuff that's against our content policy. We're not actually curating the storylines, et cetera. We don't do no sort of curation on that front.
Okay. Also, if you did have a localized video track, would it be better to upload it like an episode of a series and share the same ID or metadata?
No, we do require that separate audio language files for videos are submitted as fully separate titles right now.
Okay. Description tracks are accessibility tools. So someone that is, this was a answer to that question earlier. So I honestly don't remember the question.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. It's discrete. Yeah. Okay. I understand the question now. This makes sense. Okay. Yes, it is something that we are thinking about. It is unfortunately just not something we're supporting at this time. Obviously, accessibility is something that's super important, as we go forward. Unfortunately, it's just like, we've got a list of things to work on, and, right now it's just not the most pressing. It is something, and I realize that this is the most pressing for some people in the world. And like, I understand that. And, we are aware of something that this is a gap and a fault that we have right now. But we will, it's something that we will actively work on in the future. Unfortunately, just have to prioritize some other things right now.
All right. Okay. Is there work to support accessibility at Filmhub? For example, we kind of just answered that. Yeah. Okay. Does Filmhub accept 3D movies to be watched and played on 3D TVs, projectors, or even red, cyan?
Would be really cool, but right now, we have some other video formats to focus on right now. But yeah, great question.
Right. Can Filmhub? We talked about this before. Can Filmhub put movies up on YouTube? Their movie rent system.
Yeah, we do. We do support deliveries to Google TV and YouTube movies. Unfortunately, this is one thing that does require a third-party delivery service that we have to work with. So there is a $500 fee to deliver to YouTube movies and Google Play.
All right. And then Joe Mexican, can you deliver a film exclusively to one channel if they accept it, that is?
Why would you want to do this, Joe? Yes, if someone wants to exclusively license your title, we can work with that. But guess what? It really doesn't make sense to do exclusivity for 98% of the time. Ultimately, the deals, like I've seen the deals, I've negotiated upfront deals for streaming channels, and I've seen the dollar amounts. And, every time the filmmaker said, I realize it's probably the bad monetary decision. I want the badge though of having distributed to this service. I'm like, okay, great, go for it. It's not the right monetary decision to make. It's like, if you want this badge of my film is on XYZ service, that's great. Guess what? Then you're playing into the old industry. You're playing into what they want you to think of, oh, they need me to succeed. Well, guess what? What is definition of succeeding in film? If for you it is if for you that is having that badge of your film being on XYZ being big streaming service, go for it. But for most of the filmmakers that we work with, they really think about it in ways of they see success as making money, and so that is the way to make money is to be on as many streaming services as possible. I see the data, I've seen it. It's just it is all there. I think it's funny. I'll use an prime example of this. We work with a film, phenomenal documentary film that's done really well. And this is, I'll give you an idea of just 1 month of revenue on this title, and showing you the importance of being on different streaming services. On Tubi, arguably the number one, streaming service for a lot of independent film in the United States right now, this title made $50. On iTunes, that is transactional, this film made $10,000. On IMDB TV, that is also advertising based, this film made $15,000. Guess what? people are like, well, I only want my film to be on Tubi, or I only want my film to be on this. Well, guess what? They missed huge opportunities. And guess what then also goes out the door of that conversation of saying, oh, I don't want to be on Tubi because it's advertising based and everyone's only going to watch my film for free then. Well, guess what? They were also on iTunes, which is transactional, and they made a bunch of money. So guess what? That conversation is gone and out the window. So forget about it. It's like you need to be everywhere. Forget this thing of windowing. It's just like you take off in different locations. If you're not on every streaming service across every one of these methodologies, you've missed an opportunity. So that's how you have to think about it, point blank.
Right. Here's a guy. I kind of know the answer to this, but I think it's a good question to answer. Can I find the QC fees and delivery fees for each channel online?
Guess what? Big fat goose egg. We take care of all of that. There's no QC fees and delivery fees. Super awesome.
Yeah, the only exception then would be for like the TVOD, like the Google Play, or
we have to use a third party. We have to use a third party. Yeah, there is. That's a fee, but that's
right.
From us, there's nothing.
Yeah. And this is kind of along a similar lines. Does Filmhub negotiate independently with streamers, or is there a fixed rate for a film or a platform, I guess I should say?
So we try and focus on revenue share based deals, right? And so the revenue share based deals, we have pre-negotiated. So like one of the reasons why streaming channels like working with Filmhub again is because of the fact that we, have pre-negotiated deals with them that cover our entire catalog. And so within that, it makes them super easy for, rather than saying, I've got to negotiate. I want these 10 titles, but then I'm gonna have to negotiate with each of the filmmakers. I'm gonna have to go back and forth, et cetera. Guess what? They can just go and click instant order, subject it to the new rate, and it's, quick and easy and fast for them. Process of negotiation, of going through approvals, et cetera, is the way that the old industry used to work. And guess what? It ends up with filmmakers not getting their films on streaming services. It's why we built the system the way we have.
Right. Oh, here's a good question. So there's a SAG contract for budgets under $20,000, the ULB, where we can use SAG actors, but only if the movie is distributed on ad-based platforms. Can you use Filmhub to submit exclusively to just ad-based platforms, like take the TVOD out of the equation?
Oh my gosh, that is a ridiculous practice that SAG is imparting on filmmakers. That's. Oh, I didn't even know about that thing. I can't believe that exists. Yes, you can limit rights to advertising-based platforms only. We do support that. I would really talk to your SAG rep and be like, why the heck are you, creating more antiquated industry practices that make no sense? Guess what? If this makes absolutely zero sense, because if it's under 20K, right? And, you want the actors to actually make money, right? Guess what? You should have them. And because now what have you done? If say that actor has a point in the film, and they can only be on advertising based platforms, but I just gave the example of somebody making a bunch of money on transactional, but not on ads. They missed an opportunity. Where are the aligned incentives here in this model? That makes no sense. Oh, that's really annoying. But yes, we can support it, but this is a stupid industry practice. Sorry for saying it.
Awesome. So we're coming up on
after me for that one.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since I've actually looked at that SAG ultra low budget contract. So I'm not exactly sure that's 100%, but they could very well be right.
If that's the case, that's crazy.
Yeah. It could very well be right. Okay. You know what? We've just got a few minutes left in the stream. I think this is kind of a good question to end on. What are Filmhub's future plans? What's the stuff that's impossible now, but would be a dream to achieve in the future? Basically, where do you see Filmhub going in the future?
These are fun questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Gustav, I see you. So ultimately here, right? What is it that I see and, the Filmhub team sees in general, right? There has never been a company built in film that was really focused on filmmakers, right? And I hopefully, with our announcement today of moving to fast payments, people understand that, we are not the enemy here. We are trying to, which is a lot of people just see, distribution companies and platforms as the enemy, right? They just see it as like, oh, it's just like one person trying to break me down after another. And I feel that. And our goal here is to, really show you that we are here to help, here to make things better. And so, ultimately, what we do next, is all based upon feedback and whatnot from our filmmakers. It's one of the reasons why I do these calls, is because I want to see the questions that people are asking. I want to see and understand the problems they're facing. And so, ultimately, like what comes next is, is navigated by our community, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things I look for. And so, yeah, what are things that we're really focused on? One, right? Obviously, like monetization is important, right? And getting films up on more and more streaming services. So guess what? We're going to spend a lot of the next year adding more streaming services. We're going to be adding streaming services faster probably than any distribution company has added streaming services in the past. And we already are there. And, so that's, our number one focus for the next year as we go. But, happy to always, talk with our filmmakers and have this conversation. But hopefully you see that, the goal is that, we want to work and build this alongside you.
Awesome. Well, Alan, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I think it's really helpful for filmmakers to see this stuff and get a little more inside information, what's going on. And
Awesome.
I hope to have you back again real soon.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. Super excited here, and happy holidays and happy new year, folks. And we all hope you enjoy your faster payments.
Awesome, guys. So that was Alan Discragnoli. Guys, do not forget to subscribe, like this if you like it, submit, donate to my Patreon if you so wish. But whatever you do, keep making movies.